The jungle had a voice. It whispered in rustling leaves and growled through hidden creatures, thick with the scent of damp earth, and something older, something watching. Kale moved through it like a ghost in hostile territory, shirtless and armed only with a walking spear he'd cut from a crooked branch days ago. His boots, cracked and worn, left barely a trace on the overgrown path that led him deeper into unknown territory. He didn't know the name of this place. He didn't care to learn it. Names were for men who intended to stay. His breath was measured, steady. The air was heavy, not just with moisture, but with anticipation. Something about the land tugged at his instincts, like walking into a room where a fight had just ended and the tension hadn't left. He knew what it meant. He'd felt on 100 different battlefields. But out here, among the twisting roots and shafts of light filtering through ancient canopies, it felt older, sacred. Kale wasn't a man prone to superstition, but even he paused when the birds went silent. The spear dipped slightly in his hand as he scanned the trees. Then, without sound or warning, they stepped out. Dozens of them, tall, sinewy figures with skin like cobalt stone and eyes that shimmered like moonlight on water. Their hair, pale and pulled back into braids, glinted silver blue, and each moved with the same deliberate grace, as if they were all extensions of one will. No words were spoken. There was no need. Kale didn't lift his spear. He knew what this was. The leader came forward, taller than the rest, adorned in markings that shimmered faintly with metallic hues, and bearing a wooden staff etched with symbols Kale couldn't begin to understand. A female, though her presence commanded more than gender. She studied him, and in that gaze, Kale felt measured, dissected, judged. "You crossed the sacred veil," she said, her voice low and resonant, speaking his language without accent or strain. "I crossed a river and kept walking," he answered. "Didn't see a sign that said turn back. No sign for those who cannot read the world." She stepped closer. The ring of warriors behind her did not move. "You trespass. Under our law, this demands reckoning." Kale exhaled through his nose, eyes on hers. "You gonna kill me?" The leader's head tilted slightly, as if tasting the idea. "Not yet. You are the first outsider to reach this deep in a generation. Perhaps that means something. Or maybe I'm just stubborn," Kale muttered. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. The leader raised her hand, and silence returned. "Our law is older than memory," she said. "When challenge comes, it must be answered. You stand here uninvited, unbowed. You will fight." Kale's knuckles whitened around the spear. "Fight who?" "Our champion. In the circle. No sword, no armor, just the spear you carry. That will be enough." She stepped back and motioned. The warriors parted, revealing a stone ring sunk into the earth. Moss covered its edges, but the ground inside was bare, trampled flat by many feet, and stained darker in places. He almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he looked at the circle and then back to the leader. "What if I walk away? You won't make it far. And even if you did, the jungle would bring you back." Kale knew she was right. He felt it in the way the shadows moved. This place wanted a reckoning. "I want no crown," he said. "I came here to disappear." The leader's expression did not change. "Then let the circle decide what you are meant for." They took him in silence, two warriors flanking him, but never touching. The village was nestled deep within the jungle, seamlessly blending with the forest. Huts carved from living wood, platforms strung high among branches, and fires that gave off no smoke. Children stopped to stare. Elders watched without speaking. This place was alive, not just biologically, but spiritually. Every structure, every path, felt intentional. Kale saw none of the waste, noise, or arrogance of his own kind. That night, they prepared him. He was brought to a pool where bark-scented water was poured over his head, washing away the dust of his travels. A young warrior, not much more than a boy, handed him a new spear, longer balanced with a carved grip. "It is not the wood that kills," the boy said. "It is the truth behind the strike." Kale nodded. He understood. This wasn't about muscle or skill. It was about conviction. As the moon climbed above the trees, drums began to throb, slow at first like a heartbeat. The villagers gathered around the circle. Kale stood alone on one side, barefoot, the spear in both hands. Across from him, the champion stepped forward. Kale expected a brute. Instead, he found a figure of elegance and menace, Virun. The name echoed from the lips of the crowd, like a prayer and a warning. He was massive, but not bulky. Every movement was honed, lethal. His skin shimmered with ritual paint, and his eyes burned like twin coals. No words were exchanged. The leader stepped into the circle. Her voice rang clear. By ancient law, the one who wins becomes king. No sword, no armor, just a wooden spear. Let it begin. Then she stepped out. The drums stopped. Silence. Kale felt the world contract. No more birds. No more crowd. Just a circle, the dirt, and the man who intended to break him. Virun moved first. Not a charge. A test. A jab, quick and low. Kale deflected, pivoted, reset. He felt the shock in his arms from the impact. This was not a show fight. This was survival. Back and forth they moved, neither gaining ground. Spears whirled, feet danced, sweat dripped. Kale felt his lungs burning, legs aching. His thoughts were stripped away. All that remained was instinct. He blocked a strike high, then ducked under a spin, thrust low, missed. Virun caught him with a backhanded strike across the ribs. Pain flared. Kale stumbled, tasted blood, but he didn't fall. Somewhere in the crowd, a voice chanted. Then another. Rhythm returned, not from the drums, but from the people. Their voices rose, not favoring one or the other, but calling the moment to its peak. Kale stood straight, eyes on Virun. He gripped the spear tighter and smiled. The story didn't end that night. But in that moment, sweat-streaked, bloodied, and surrounded by a tribe that had named him intruder, Kale knew something had shifted. He wasn't running anymore. He was walking toward something. And the jungle watched, waiting. Kale's breath came in sharp bursts, sweat coursing down his temples as he tightened his grip on the spear. The circle of onlookers was a blur of glowing eyes and poised bodies, but he saw none of them. Only the champion stood clear before him. Virun, unyielding and unreadable, his stance rooted like a tree yet coiled with potential of a striking snake. Kale had fought before, wars, ambushes, barroom brawls, but never like this. There were no screams, no metal clashing, only silence and purpose. Virun moved first again, and Kale met the attack head-on. What struck would, the impact jarring Kale's wrists. The champion flowed back like water, spun, and came again, low jab, upward thrust, sidestep, feint. Kale parried the first, dodged the second, but the third strike connected. A sharp snap of pain tore through his shoulder as the blunt end of Virun's spear slammed against bone. He staggered, dropping to one knee, eyes flicking up to meet his opponent's. No hesitation. Virun was already pressing forward. Spear poised for another strike. Kale rolled aside, came up low, swinging in a wide arc that forced the champion back a step. He didn't need to win in the first minute. He just needed to survive long enough to find a crack. The crowd didn't cheer. They watched in silence, their expressions solemn, reverent. This was not entertainment. It was sacrament. Kale adjusted his grip and focused. Every movement Virun made told a story. The pivot of his foot, the roll of his shoulder, even the tilt of his chin, all part of a rhythm, a dance passed down through generations. He wasn't just fighting a man. He was fighting a culture, a legacy etched into muscle memory and blood. But Kale had his own rhythm. He fought with chaos, improvisation born of desperation, and a lifetime of learning the hard way. He faked a stumble and lunged upward, forcing Virun to block high, then swept low with a foot. The champion jumped, but Kale's follow-up jab grazed his ribs. A shallow hit, but a hit nonetheless. The crowd murmured, a ripple of surprise moving through them. Virun's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something close to respect. Then the champion smiled. He attacked with new intensity. Blows came faster, sharper, too quick to count. Kale moved on instinct, blocking some, absorbing others, always retreating. The ring gave him little room. He was cornered. A sweeping strike caught his thigh, burning hot pain down his leg. He nearly dropped his spear. Then he saw it. The moment. Virun overextended just slightly on a high jab. It was the smallest opening, invisible to all but someone trained by survival itself. Kale pivoted hard, ignoring the pain, and slammed the butt of his spear into the side of the champion's knee. Virun stumbled. Kale followed, striking again, once, twice, pushing him back with every blow. They circled each other now, slower, both breathing heavily. Blood soaked Kale's side. Virun's knee buckled slightly. Neither looked away. "This ends only one way," Kale said between breaths. Virun's voice was calm. "Yes, with truth." Then he charged. Kale dropped low, sweeping up a diagonal jab. Virun blocked, but Kale had no intention of striking. The move was a feint, and as the champion adjusted counter, Kale twisted, dropped to one knee, and drove the spear forward, not to kill, but to disarm. The weapon flew from Virun's hands. Kale rose, standing over him, his own spear raised. Virun stared up at him, unflinching, waiting. Kale didn't strike. Instead, he stepped back and lowered the spear, planting it into the earth between them. A collective exhale swept through the crowd, as if they too had been holding their breath. Virun stood slowly, pride intact though bruised. He reached for his fallen spear, then hesitated. Instead, he looked Kale in the eyes and gave a shallow bow. "The circle has chosen," he said. 1,000 unsaid things passed between them in that moment. The fight was over. The outcome had meaning far beyond the clash of two bodies. The leader approached, flanked by elders whose bodies bore the history of the tribe in scars and tattoos. She looked at Kale not with joy, but with solemn gravity. Her words were for all to hear. "By law, he is king." No celebration followed. No cheers. Only a stillness more profound than silence. In this place, victory was not a thing to be paraded. It was a burden, heavy and sacred. Kale didn't speak. He couldn't. The weight of what he had just done pressed down harder than any wound. He looked around at the faces, unreadable and expectant. These people had followed tradition without question. He had stepped into it like a storm, and now, somehow, he was meant to lead. He didn't want to lead. He wanted rest. But the circle had chosen. And in this land, the circle was law. As the crowd slowly dispersed, the leader approached him again. "You will come to the Hall of Ancients at dawn. The crown is not a thing you wear, Kale. It is a path. You will begin walking it tomorrow." Kale looked past her, into the darkness of the jungle. It stared back, endless and alive. "I've walked paths before," he said. The leader nodded once. "Not like this one." Then she turned and vanished into the night, leaving him alone in the circle, the wooden spear still embedded in the earth between blood and stone. The Hall of Ancients was not a hall in the way Kale understood buildings. It was a vast clearing ringed by trees so old their roots weaved through stone and soil like the very bones of the land. The canopy opened just enough to let golden slivers of morning light filter down in shafts, illuminating worn carvings etched into stone pillars that stood like guardians. The air hummed with a quiet reverence. Every breath felt like it might stir something sacred. Kale stood at the edge, unsure if he was meant to walk in or wait. His wound still throbbed from the trial the night before, but the ache had become something else, an echo of the rite he'd endured and survived. He was no longer a trespasser. He was king. And yet, Noah had told him what that truly meant. The leader appeared beside him as if she'd been there all along. She wore no crown, no ornament, but the authority in her gaze was absolute. "Enter," she said simply. Kale stepped forward, his bare feet pressing into the cool moss. At the center of the space, a circular depression had been carved into the ground, surrounded by 12 stone seats. 9 were filled with elders, their faces painted with ash and ochre, each expression carved by years of silence and decision. The other 3 seats remained empty, not out of neglect, but ceremony. "You come to us chosen by the circle," the leader said, her voice carrying like wind through leaves. "But we do not crown men for their strength alone." Kale said nothing. He wasn't sure if he was expected to respond, and silence had served him well so far. "Do you know what it means to bear a crown here?" she asked. "I didn't come to wear one," he answered, "but I fought your champion. I followed your rules. That makes you worthy to begin, she said. Not the rule. The words held no malice. They were truth, pure and unvarnished. Another elder spoke. His voice rasped with age. Our last king bled for unity. Our people are strong but scattered. The jungle hides more than trees. There are other clans. Some have forgotten the law. Others reject it. And they'll challenge me. Kale said, more observation than question. Not all challenges come with spears, the leader said. Some come with whispers, with loyalty offered and then withdrawn. You must understand them, or you will fall. Kale looked at the elders. Then show me, teach me. A murmur passed between them, approval or perhaps curiosity. So began the second trial. Days became a rhythm of rituals and learning. Kale was brought into councils, shown the way of their spirits and their governance. He learned the balance they kept with the land, how every tree taken was honored, every hunt marked by offering. Their language was one of gesture, tone, and silence as much as words. Wisdom passed not in commands, but in shared stories by firelight. He listened more than he spoke. He trained with the warriors, not to sharpen his body, but to learn how they moved as one, without ego. Vierun, no longer his rival, became his guide in this. Their sparring was quiet and brutal, not to dominate, but to teach rhythm and restraint. Yet even as Kale grew into this strange, sacred role, he sensed unrest. In the edge of conversations, in the way some warriors lowered their eyes rather than meet his. Not all were pleased with an outsider on the path of kingship. One night, the leader called him away from the fires and led him into the forest, to a place where vines wove into curtains of green and a spring bubbled quietly from stone. This is the heart of our land, she said. Few are brought here. Kale knelt by the spring and touched the water. It was cold, pure. You feel it too, she said. I feel many things, he replied carefully. There are clans that do not sit at the circle, she said. They watch from the dark, waiting. They will not accept you as king. Not unless you do what the last king could not, which is unite them, she said, not with force, with vision. Kale frowned. I was a soldier, not a prophet. You were chosen, she said. The circle sees more than we do. He stared into the water, searching for answers that wouldn't come. If I fail, you won't, she said, and for the first time, he heard something close to hope in her voice. Later that night, as Kale returned alone through the winding forest paths, a shadow detached itself from the trees ahead. A young warrior stepped out. Kale recognized him as one of the quiet ones, always watching during council but never speaking. You are not one of us, the boy said. Kale stopped. No, I'm not. Then why do they follow you? I don't think they do, Kale said honestly. Not yet. Some never will. Kale tilted his head. You here to warn me? To test you. The boy raised a spear not in challenge, but in offering. There are others like me, waiting. If you want loyalty, you'll have to earn it beyond the circle. Kale took the spear slowly. And where do I find them? The boy smiled. In the places even the elders won't speak of. Then he vanished into the trees, leaving Kale alone with the weapon in hand and a new path before him, one not chosen by law, but necessity. Kale looked up at the stars blinking through the canopy, each one a marker in the dark. He didn't know where this road would end, but he knew now this kingship would not be settled in the circle alone. It would be forged in the wild among the forgotten. Kale moved through the jungle with a quiet confidence born of necessity. The spear the young warrior had given him remained strapped across his back, more symbol than weapon now. 3 days had passed since that night. 3 days of traversing uneven terrain, listening to the sounds of birds that vanished the moment he approached, of sensing things that watched but never revealed themselves. This was no longer a journey of acceptance. It was a test of belief. And Kale wasn't sure yet what he believed. The first settlement he found was little more than scattered huts woven from reed and bark, hidden in the crook of a mountain ridge where mist clung to every stone. He had expected suspicion. He was greeted with silence. Children paused their games. Elders stood still in their work. No one raised a hand or voice. They simply watched as he approached. From the largest hut emerged a woman with eyes like river stones, gray, unwavering, and sharp. Her garments bore the red ochre spirals of the Variant, one of the splinter clans that had long drifted from the council's grasp. She held no weapon, only a length of polish inlaid with bone, a symbol of judgment. "You are the Circle's dog," she said, not unkindly, just plainly. "I'm no one's dog," Kale replied, "but I stood in the Circle, and I earned the right to walk." She studied him. "That path ends before it reaches us." "Then I'll walk farther," he said. The woman's gaze narrowed. "Why are you here?" "Because I was told not to come," Kale said. "Because your people were forgotten, or you chose to forget us. I don't know which, but I know I can't lead ghosts." A flicker of amusement crossed her face. "And what would you offer us, Ghost King?" "Nothing," Kale said. "Only a seat in the Circle, a voice, and no more blood." She stepped aside. "Then sit, speak. But know this, we do not bend easily." Kale stayed that night among the Variant. They gave him little, but withheld nothing. Around the fire, they spoke of their ancestors, of the last time a king had come with promises and steel. It had ended in betrayal. The tribe had left, retreating into the highlands with their dead, and distrust in equal measure. That history weighed heavier than any crown Kale could offer. Still, by morning, a few had gathered near him, not to pledge loyalty, but to listen. And in a land of silence, listening was the first step toward change. More days followed, more paths. He went east, where the marsh tribes painted their faces with mud and sang warnings into the air. There, he met the Knock, nomads who claimed no land, only water and sky. They questioned his strength, not with blades but riddles, songs, and shared meals laced with bitter roots meant to test the body's resolve. Kale passed their trials not with defiance, but humility. He did not try to command them. He asked to understand. Each new clan was a piece of the whole, a language he had to learn without ever assuming fluency. And in each, he saw the fracture that threatened them all, not hate, but distance, misunderstanding, pride layered with pain. We returned at last to the capital clearing. The Hall of Ancients stood unchanged. But something in Kale had shifted. Vieruin met him at the edge of the tree line. The warrior's eyes scanned him like a blade. "You've been gone weeks." "I found more than I expected," Kale said. "Did you find a crown?" Kale shook his head. "No, just a map, one that leads through fire." They walked together through the clearing. Elders emerged from the shadows of stone and memory. The leader stood at their center. "You return," she said. "I do." "Do you come to rule?" "I come to finish what I began." The leader nodded, then turned to the gathered people. Word had spread. From the highlands and marshes, the scattered clans had sent envoys, a handful at first, then dozens. Some came with suspicion, others curiosity. All came with eyes wide open. Kale stood before them. He held no spear now, no crown, just the dirt beneath his feet and the weight of the words he was about to speak. "I stood in the Circle and fought with a spear," he said, "and by law I was named king. But I have walked since then, through jungles and rivers, through silence and mistrust. I have seen what the Circle cannot see from here, that we are not one people. We are many, and that is our strength, not our weakness." A murmur moved through the crowd. "I do not ask you to follow me because I want a trial. I ask you to walk with me because if we do not, we will fall apart. Not by war, but by forgetting who we are." One of the Variant envoys stepped forward. "And who are we, King?" Kale looked at him and then at all the faces watching. "We are the children of the wild, born of root and flame. We are not ruled by crowns or circles. We are ruled by the choice to stand together." The leader of the council stepped forward, and in her hands, she carried an object Kale had not seen before, a circlet woven from braided bark, feathers, and a single obsidian shard. "This is not a crown," she said. "It is a reminder of the burden, of the path. Do you accept it?" Kale stepped forward and took the circlet in both hands. He did not place it on his head. He held it before the people. "I accept the burden, not to lead above, but among, Then he turned, slowly, and placed a circle on a small stone at the center of the circle. The people were silent. Then, one by one, they began to step forward, elders, warriors, envoys, placing their own symbols beside it. A carved bone, a woven charm, a feather, a shard of stone, not to serve a king, but to build something new. And so began the reign of the king with no throne, crowned not by conquest, but by trust hard-earned. Yet beyond the trees, beyond the hills, eyes still watched. Not all were ready for peace. Not all had been reached. And Kale knew the path was not yet done.